How are you this morning? This is Dr. Maul coming to you today from Family 360. God bless you. We hope you've had a wonderful and a safe day since I spoke to you the last time. Family 360 is coming to you today live from Conyers, Georgia, from our counseling offices, 2012 East View Parkway, Conyers, Georgia, 30013. We are in Suite 400. Our phone number is 770-679-0586. I invite you to visit our website at www.family360center.com to learn about Family 360, to become more acquainted with the different services, outpatient counseling, mental health services we offer, such as anger management, nutrition management. We have added some new programs in terms of diabetes, trying to reach the younger population today with the challenge of managing their nutrition. Added a new service which should be added in terms of mental health and the church, which we want to make the church a little bit more friendlier towards those who are mentally ill, not only in their congregations, but in the community as well. You're married, you're having marriage problems, Family 360 is here to help you. You're single, you're in a relationship, you're dating, why not equip yourself? Get some good training, education, and counseling before you say I do, and before you regret saying I do. By giving us a call, come and see us, come and talk to us, Family 360, 770 6790586. You can email me, Dr. Maul, D Maul. Email me at DMAUL at family360center.com. That's D Maul at family360center.com. We are excited because we are asking God to bless us with some monthly faith partners who would support us financially as we move into the new year of 2017. Man, the year flew by so fast. Lord have mercy. Signs of the times. And we are trusting God to take us to a higher level of service to our consumers this coming year as we seek to expand our services to a higher level. And in about a year or so, we should be applying to get our Medicaid number so that we can also provide services to consumers on Medicaid, and Medicaid and Medicare and all those federal programs. So it takes faith, and I'm asking you to pray with us that God will so open up doors for us that we can continue to be a blessing. How about you today? I hope you're doing fine, and it's good to be here because we've come a long way since we opened up this agency in 2013. It was a step of faith, and every day is a step of faith. Some days I don't know where the next money is coming from to pay the bills, but I'm trusting God. So far, He has not let me down. He continues to provide and make a way sometimes when there seems to be no way. We are back on our series. Some of you may have heard these series maybe a year or so ago, but some of you have asked for these series and we cannot find all of them. So I'm redoing the series, Bad Girls of the Bible. And after that, I'll be doing some Bad Boys of the Bible. I just want to balance it out because some time ago, I think one lady said, "Why are you always picking on the woman?" I'm not picking on the woman. It's just the way it is. It's written in the Bible. That's the way it is. And sometimes you don't want to hear the role that women have played in our situations, but it's the reality. But men have also played their part, played their role, and many times have failed to live up to God's expectations. And so I'll be doing a series after this with titled bad boys, some bad boys, a whole bunch of them. So I don't know if I'll be able to finish all of them, but it's fun. You can tell I'm having fun with this series, right? It's fun to see that in God's word, God did not hide the evil, the depravity of the human mind, the human spirit. All of these things the Bible said have been written for examples. But the sad thing, many of us in our since the days of the Bible have not heed God's warning, and so we continue to have depravity, evil, sin rampant um, throughout the world. So I hope by teaching this series, you will be blessed. You can use it in any way you see fit. And please pray for me because I'm also struggling to finish writing this book, the first book that I'm going to write. I've been writing for a couple of years now, but I kind of put a deadline on myself to have it published by March. So I'm almost there. I got maybe a couple more chapters to get to that word count that I need. Almost there. I'm up to about 17,000 plus right now, so I'm almost there. So you pray for me as I pray for you as we continue with this series. Potiphar's wife. Man, what a woman! What a woman! Who said the song? What a man! What a man! What a man! What a man! Man! I don't know. That's the way it sounds to me. But we've been talking about Mrs. Potiphar. And as I said to you, as we talk about these bad girls of the Bible, one of the things I want you to notice that they never fail to use their sexuality, their femininity, to get their way for good or for bad. And Mrs. Potiphar is a prime example. She was not beating around the bush in demanding that. She was demanding. She was not begging. She was not pleading. She was demanding that Joseph sleep with her. And I believe she felt the sting of rejection because day after day, the Bible tells us that she kept pressing Joseph. This woman would not let up of this young boy. To her, he was new blood, fresh meat, new flesh, exotic, foreign. Some of us men, we're um, caught up in foreign women. The woman, that multicolored, sometimes beautiful skin woman, the Tiger Woods type that looks a certain way. And I don't mean Tiger Woods girls, but I mean the type of a color. Uh, um, and we get fascinated with that. We find some men who will only date and marry foreign women. Mail order brides, we call them. So Mrs. Potiphar had one placed right in her house, not on her doorstep, but right in her house in the form of Joseph, this white Hebrew boy who's now running her household. He had complete control of everything in the house except except his master's food. It's interesting that Potiphar never warned Joseph about Mrs. Potiphar, never warned Joseph, about not touching her, not sleeping with her. He told Joseph basically, you got control of everything in this house except my food. I kind of tell you what he thought of his wife. Huh? He kind of give you some idea. And here it is, Mrs. Potiphar has taken full advantage of the situation. Yesterday we were looking at the fact that she had grabbed a hold of Joseph and Joseph fled from her. Joseph fled from her presence. And in fleeing from her, Joseph left his coat, his cloak, um, everything that would betray his presence. Genesis 39:12 says she caught him. Now remember, she had cleaned out the house. She had dismissed all her servants, send them outside the house, maybe send them to their home, because she wanted this day with Joseph. So she dismissed all her servants. Um, that's verse 11. It says, one day he, Joseph, came into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside, not nary one. No man, no woman, no child, no picnic, nobody was in the house. So right away, red flags. How many times we see red flags in our relationships, but we ignore them? Joseph did the same thing. Joseph ignored the red flags. He went about his duties. I'm not even sure if he asked Mrs. Potiphar what has happened to the servants. The house was empty. And so here she comes. She approached Joseph. I'm sure Joseph was nowhere near her bedroom. Okay? But the Bible tells us she caught him, verse 12, by his cloak or linen, whatever he was. It was hot, it was humid. Those people don't wear cloaks over there. So this may be a bad translation here. But basically, in those days, men walked around in their undergarments, which was customary. In some tribes, they walk around naked. Some tribes now. Sometimes I see that and say, man, what? How could you just live around and you see women naked every day, men naked every day? How come you don't go up and just grab somebody and take what you want? But there are rules and order established. Unless you want to get killed in those cultures and tribes, you don't do that. So it was in Egyptian society. So even though he was skimpily dressed, that did not give Mrs. Potiphar the authority to go and grab this young man. And Joseph was close enough, or she got close enough to him to be able to grab a hold of him. She was going to take sex by force. How many of you have done that? How many of us, men and women, have done that? Whether the woman or the man was willing or unwilling, we take it by force. In today's society, we call that rape. As a matter of fact, in some states now, you have spousal rape. You can't just take sex by force from your spouse anymore unless you want to be arrested and carted off to jail and be prosecuted and do some time. But here it is. Mrs. Potiphar grabbed a hold of Joseph. She intended to take sex from him forcefully if she had to. So Joseph realized what was going on because she had been pressuring him for days. We don't know how many days or months or weeks, but this woman was not giving up. And so this was the day. She said, you're going to give it to me today, or this is it. You're not going to be in this house. I believe she came to that conclusion that if Joseph continued to resist her, she was going to get rid of him. And we will see the plot that she had. So day after day, she pressured him. She set Joseph up. Joseph walked right into the empty house. There were no eyewitnesses, no one to hear or see anything. And so she made her move. Joseph left the evidence. Many men who have taken sex by force have left the evidence. Semen, sperm, fingerprints, all kind of DNA evidence we have left behind. And so did Joseph. Joseph left the evidence. And how many of us have done that intentionally or unintentionally? You see, Joseph was trying to get away. We men are not trying to get away. We want to take the sex, and we still left the evidence. And Joseph fled for his life. Joseph was a righteous young man. As I said, he was in his late teens. And despite all the pressure that was put on him, despite all the temptation from this vixen, and I guarantee you she was not an ugly woman, or else she would not have been with Potiphar. Maybe Potiphar was bored of her. Maybe she was bored of Potiphar. You see, we never know what's going on in a marriage when we see it from the outside. Some of us look at a marriage and say, man, that's a happy couple. And when they end up divorced, we are shocked. When he or she end up killing each other, we are shocked. They came to church, but they were in church, or we went socializing with them. We never know what's going on behind closed doors. So those on the outside looked at Mr. and Mrs. Potiphar as the ideal couple, the perfect couple, the couple that others should look up to. But unlike Joseph's coat of many colors, she, Mrs. Potiphar, came in one shade, black. Her heart was black. Her intentions were evil. And the scripture tells us in verses 13 and 14, when she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called her household servants. So they weren't too far. She just got them out of the vicinity. And it's amazing because these household servants probably knew what she was up to, and they saw Joseph going in the house, and I believe they never warned Joseph. These household servants that she now called were in hearing distance. So I believe they figured something was up, and they never warned Joseph. They never told Joseph of what was up. Look, she said. Look, she said to them, this Hebrew. Oh, all of a sudden it's a Hebrew now, huh? All of a sudden you begin to call him names. Have you ever been in a fight with your spouse? Oh, all of a sudden, no, the name calling starts. All of a sudden, no, the nastiness comes forth because she didn't get her way, because he didn't get he didn't get his way. How many times we as couples get into nasty arguments, verbal ones, sometimes physical fights, divorces, separations, because one of us is not getting our way. Mrs. Potiphar was not satisfied. She was not going to take this humiliation. She was not going to take this quote unquote Hebrew boy, as she now calls him, dissing her and saying no to her. When remember now, she's accustomed to have. She reminds me of Donald Trump, who the man is so fickle. He's on Twitter every day. You say something about him, he's gonna come after you. And man, watch out, watch your back. The Lord help us during his 4 years here in office. So she said, this Hebrew boy has been brought to us. Oh, ooh, wait a minute. Where did this us come from? She's now involving the servants that she previously didn't have any positive regard toward. So now she's be careful of people who want to draw you into their mess. Now she's accumulating witnesses that she knew would testify for her, even if they didn't see anything. All they knew, they saw Joseph going in the house, and they saw him running out the house. They saw him running out the house. And I think later on it could save Joseph, because I'm sure Potiphar, being Pharaoh's God, was a wise man. And I'm sure Potiphar went to maybe check with one or two of them as to what they knew or what they saw. Okay? She said, this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Isn't it the other way around? She's the one who wanted to make sport of Joseph. She's the one who wanted to make him her sex toy, her gigolo, her playboy. She's the one who wanted to get Joseph in her bed, and now all of a sudden she's blaming him. She hollered, she screamed to her household servants. These same ones she had sent outside while she made her attempt to seduce Joseph. Man, she loved to order people around. People who are bossy. People who are bossy, they cannot take rejection. They cannot take no. When you tell bossy people no, man, you better watch your back. You better be careful. Whether they are right or wrong, watch those bossy people. They will smile in your face, but they're going to walk away from you and say, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get her. And this is Mrs. Potiphar. Bossy people. People who are controllers, people who love to control, people who are dictators, men or women who love to tell you what to do. You tell them no, you refuse their desires and wants. Watch your back. Be careful. She did not succeed in committing adultery with Joseph, but she was very successful in what? Lying. In using her creative mind in pinning the blame on this Hebrew boy. She's ashamed. She's embarrassed because Joseph stood up to her. Listen to me. Sometimes you got to take the flak for standing up for what is right. Sometimes, even our own marriages, sometimes our spouses may not like it. But personally, I believe there are too many limp wristed husbands and boyfriends around. We let our wives run us all over the place and we don't stand up in a positive way because we're afraid of her. What does she do? Denying us sex. We're afraid of, the arguments and the conflicts. And so we give in. Even when we know it's wrong, we give in and we end up paying the price. I rather do the opposite. I rather stand up for the right and for better or for worse, say no or yes and take the flak. If I believe strongly in a principle, I'm gonna stick with it. And you know what? It's gonna cost me, but I'm willing to live with it. So here it is. Scorned by this uppity slave, rejected by this uppity slaves, she turned her passion, she turned her greed into vengeance against Joseph. Nobody put down Mrs. Potiphar. Who are you to say no to me? Who are you? It's like our president-elect, when a woman says no or reject, he grabs them by the pee. You know what he did. And walks in on them in their rooms, forces. Listen to me. He said, I'm so embarrassed and ashamed, but what you gonna do? The other people, the Christian evangelicals of America, the white Christian evangelicals of America have elected Donald Trump as our president. They completely disregard the Bible. They threw all their morals out the window to elect Donald Trump. We're gonna pay the price. We gonna pay the price. And then they put it on God. You guys gonna make me puke. Genesis 39:14-15 says, he came in here to sleep with me. This is her story. No, she's now transferring all this sexual angst, sexual tension onto Joseph. He came in here, and I'm sure these servants did not believe her. I know, because I believe some of these male servants probably slept with her in the past. I believe they know her history and her reputation. So even though she's saying this, I don't believe that they believed her. But you know what? They wanted their jobs. They were slaves. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. She did not scream. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. What a lying wretch. How many of us men have experienced the lies of a woman, the lies of a spouse, the lies of a man? She didn't get her way. He didn't get her way. He didn't get his way. And now here come the lies. And they're good at lying. Let me tell you something. There are some people who are expert liars. Yeah, even the lie detector cannot catch them. There are some people, even the cops sometimes get frustrated after putting someone on that lie detector machine because the machine is not helping him, because the cops know that that individual committed that crime, but they are so good in defeating that machine. There's some men and women, some spouses who are expert liars, like Mrs. Potiphar. Look at her story and look how quickly you see her mind. I believe she had this all planned out, because day after day, this boy keeps rejecting her. So she had a plan. She said, okay, I'm going to get you. I'll get back at you. You keep rejecting me. And she came up with her skit. Man, she could have written one of the best novels out here with all the twists and turns. And so she lied. They were servants, but they were not fools. Listen to me. These servants, if the boss lady said she had screamed, guess what? These servants would have ran to her. They would have heard her. Remember a moment back, she just called to them and they came. They came to her. She said that she screamed. They didn't come running because she was lying. Not a single response from any servants. Not one servant attests to her story. Not one servant said, I heard you scream. Not one servant said, but madam, you put us all out the house. So Joseph could come in and spend. Listen to me, they didn't want their heads chopped off. They were servants, but they were wise. They saw through her lies. They saw through her lies, but they kept quiet. They didn't want to speak up. They saw the fleeing Joseph still in his loin cloth. They saw him running for his life. And maybe they all succumbed to her demands themselves, as I said, at some other time. Because I don't believe this was the first attempt of a Mrs. Potiphar to seduce a man. But I don't believe these servants warned Joe, or maybe they did warn Joseph about this woman. Obviously, Potiphar did not. So she had his cloak in his hand. Was that proof enough? No. There are many of our men who have been to prison. I was reading, was it earlier this week or last week, of a man who did 39 years in jail, 39 years in prison, and he was finally exonerated by DNA evidence. Why in the hell does it take 39 years to liberate and free somebody? Don't tell me there's no racism there. You look back on some of the men, and 99% of them are black, who have been to jail. Some of them have been executed falsely on false accusation and lies concocted by cops and community white folks and all that kind of stuff. No, no, no. I'm for capital punishment. Don't get me wrong. If you're guilty, then your ass needs to be executed. Because we got too many of you guys out here killing innocent people, innocent children, and you do little or no time in jail, and you come back out and you kill again. You feel as if life is worth nothing. You need to go out here. You need to be, I don't care what color you are, black, white, Latino, Asian, you kill somebody intentionally. I'm not talking about the accidental murders as the Bible talks about. But I'm talking about the intentional murder, execution of individuals, families. You need to go to jail. Not only go to jail, but you need to be executed. The problem with capital punishment today is it is not applied appropriately. We have all the appeals in the world. Some people sit on death row for 30, 40 years. Some die on death row because of the legalese. We have our bleeding heart society that feels as if capital punishment is wrong. Let it be their family. Let it be. I'm writing a book, I told you, about forgiveness. And I'm going to touch on some of these things. You can tell I was an ex-cop, right? So verse 16 said she kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. She kept the quote unquote evidence right next. Maybe she liked the smell of it. You know, maybe she had some type of fetish, clothes fetish, odor fetish. I don't know. The Bible says she kept it beside her until his master, her husband, Potiphar, came home. Do you still feel sympathy for this woman? I hope you don't. Don't tell me you feel sorry for her. She know exactly. And if you feel sorry for her, maybe you have some of her qualities and some of her traits. Huh? Just look at what she did. She wouldn't tell the servants, here, take this back to Joseph. No. She kept the coat right next to her. You can imagine her smelling that coat, rubbing that coat, because that's all she's gonna get from Joseph. You know, cussing, because that's not what she wanted. She wanted the body in that coat, but the boy said no. And so she accused this innocent Joseph of the very behavior of which she was guilty. She was guilty as sin, guilty as hell. An evil woman, scorned, is frightening. An evil woman, an angry woman who feels scorned, watch your back. How quickly her passion turned from sexual desire to hate. How quickly, when a man rapes a woman, how quickly that passion turns after he's had his way with her. It turns from lust to hate to anger, and some even turn around and kill that woman. She could be the most beautiful woman, the most beautiful girl out here. Once a rapist has had his way with her, many times he turns around and kills the very desire, the very thing that he wanted, the very thing that attracted him so much, he turned around and destroyed it. Here it is, Mrs. Potiphar. She is now bent on destroying that desire of her heart. She is bent on destroying Joseph, the very object of her desire. That she took all the risk for in her marriage. She put her reputation on the line. She now wants to destroy him. And so we can see I don't know how long before Potiphar came home, could be days or weeks or months. But during all of this time, we see where Joseph, oh Jesus, where Joseph became the victim, the source of her anger and pain. It is amazing that with all the stuff that has been going on with Joseph, we see where he is at a place where this technology is driving me nuts, so I hope you can overlook it. The radio is playing in the background. Oh yes. But listen, in everything that we see here, we see the stability, the strength, the confidence of a Joseph. In spite of all the lies, I'm sure he heard them. I'm sure the servants came back and said, Joseph, guess what this woman was saying about you? We saw you going in there. We know what happened, but guess what? This is what she's saying. And she hated Joseph. Joseph stayed away from her. You know, somebody hates you who despise you, who stay away from them. They can do more harm, and if you give them the opportunity, they will destroy you. She was not that woman mentioned in Proverbs 31. The Bible says, "For the lips of an adulteress," mentioned in Proverbs, "for the lips of an adulteress drip honey, and her speech, is smoother than oil, but in the end she is bitter as gall, sharp as a double-edged sword." Vicious, mean, a killer. One smooth, quick, easy, believable lie gets another. Remember now, there are people out here who are experts when it comes to lying. Verse 19 tells us, when his master, her husband, heard the story his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me." Oh, listen, she went out of her way. She put on the drama to convince her husband. I believe she did. She became histrionic, narcissistic, and she lied her behind off to Pharaoh. Look at what she said: "Your slave." She know what? It reminds me of Adam blaming God for Eve. When Adam said, "The woman you gave me." Now, guess what? Mrs. Potiphar is saying, "The slave, this man, this Hebrew boy you brought into my house, your slave." You see, now she's putting, not only did she blame Joseph a moment ago, but now she is blaming Potiphar for bringing this Hebrew boy into her house to try and man, she's good. Huh? She good. Let me tell you something. If you are not sane, you will think the lies that other people tell are true. You would believe that you are crazy because of how sensible, how correct, how good their lies are. But you got to know who you are in Christ, because the Bible says, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." You must be able to discern, be able to discern evil around you. So now she is blaming Potiphar. She is saying, "This slave that you brought into my house, like Adam, this woman that you put in here with me, this woman that you gave me, Lord, it's your fault." She's blaming Pot. She's innocent. She's not taking any responsibility here. She is innocent. Jesus help us. The cover up, like Adam and Eve, the cover up begins. The blame shifting begins. And so Potiphar got angry. But who was he angry at? I believe Potiphar knew his wife. I believe Potiphar did not trust his wife. I believe Potiphar trusted Joseph the moment he met him. That's why he elevated him to be head servant of his house. The only restriction was he should not touch his food. You see, Potiphar see here that Joseph was the obvious target. You see, and Potiphar got angry with Joseph. But was it real, or was it a put on to pacify his wife? I believe Potiphar believed that Joseph was innocent, because in those days, Potiphar is a big man, not just physically, but the power. He could have ordered Joseph put to death. He could have killed Joseph for touching his wife, for violating his wife, for dishonor in his home. He could have killed Joseph. This foreigner, who would have missed Joseph? He's a foreigner, a Hebrew boy. Who would have missed him? Remember now, he's the chief bodyguard. He probably killed 1,001 people, thousands of people. So who would have believed Joseph? Hmm? But Potiphar, I believe Potiphar believed Joseph. He couldn't kill him. He saw the innocence in Joseph. I don't know if Joseph was crying. Remember now, Joseph was a teenager. But I believe once Potiphar sat down with Joseph and spoke with Joseph, Joseph told him the truth, and Potiphar believed Joseph. That's why Potiphar did not punish him. He basically, verse 20 says, Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. That's the best Potiphar could have done for Joseph. Remember now, this is also part of God's plan. Joseph doesn't see the hand of God. I believe Joseph was stressed. Anxiety was all over him. Anger, pacing back and forth. God, you told me I was going to be a ruler now. Remember now, he's young, he's impetuous, he's hasty. He wants it now. And he said, God, you promised me this. And look at what's happening to me. I go from one hell to the next. And I believe Potiphar heard and understood Joseph. God left out so much. God in allowing the men to write these scriptures would only allow them to write so much. So much is left out. So much is left to be interpreted. Prison, yes, but not death. Joseph could handle prison. I mean, he was in a well at one time. He had to be fighting lions and bears, to protect his sheep. He had to be fighting his brothers to stay alive. Huh? He had lost his mother at a very young age. So Joseph knew stress. Joseph knew anger. And you will see he will use all this later on when he came to dealing with his brothers. So he put him in jail, prison, but not death. So what of Mrs. Potiphar? What came of her? Hmm? What do you think happened to her? I don't know what happened to Miss Potiphar after this, because after this she disappeared from the scriptures. But I believe Potiphar had sufficient gray area not to believe her, not to trust her, not to believe her lies. And I believe because of his doubt, he spared Joseph and put Joseph in prison. So the innocent, how many times this happened, gets hauled off to jail. The innocent, Joseph, is thrown back in a hellhole, and the guilty, the murderers, got away. This young man is paying a price, while the guilty, his reputation was now ruined. But in God's eyes, this was just a part of the process in God's eyes to elevate him. In one swoop, Potiphar's wife managed to commit a whole host of sins without bashing an eyelid, without blushing, without any remorse. Do you know people like that? There are people who would kill you and walk away from you without any regrets. There are people who stab you in your back. They will take everything you have. There are people who break in your house. They will snatch your kids, snatch without one bit of remorse. Even when they are caught, no remorse. We call them sociopaths, antisocial. Mrs. Potiphar fit that category. Mrs. Potiphar described, I see her with those bright eyes, that lion tongue, those lion lips. The Bible says, of the evil hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that schemes, that devises, quick to rush into evil, quick to be a false witness. I'm reading from Proverbs 6:16 to 19. Quick to be a false witness and someone who stirs up dissension. She could not admit her own guilt. So that's basically it for Mrs. Potiphar. I have some questions to kind of wrap up this teaching. What lessons can we learn from Mrs. Potiphar? Huh? What lessons can we learn from Mrs. Potiphar? Number one, we have to stay on our toes. You have to. In this day and age, you have to stay alert. You got to be aware of your surroundings. You have to be aware of the people you associate with. You have to be aware of the people you allow in your house, the people around your children. You never know. In this day and age, the innocence of our children is taken so quickly, so easily, and many times by the person we least suspect. Many times you read where a guest in the house violated a child or violated a wife. Someone you thought was your best friend stole your husband, stole your woman, stole your friend. Huh? Evil is all around us. Be careful. Don't just assume anything. Don't assume things about people. Learn, observe, watch people, and ask God for the spirit of discernment. Ephesians 5:15 to 16 says, be very careful then how you live. Not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. You want me to read that for you again? You need to hear that. Read it for yourself. Ephesians 5:15 to 16. Next, it's smart to surround ourselves with support. Where was Joseph's support? I believe Potiphar was his best support. I believe these silent slaves were his best support. Be someone who has good support around you. You know, don't allow yourselves to take unnecessary risks. Be appropriately dressed. Be modest in your dress. Yeah, I know you got a good body. I know you look good, but you don't have to show it to the whole world because there is evil in the world around you. Many times you don't know the evil. Sometimes the evil is sitting right next to you, drinking with you. Modesty is the word. Ephesians 6:11 says, put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. Man, the devil has schemes, multiplicity of schemes. Next, let's seek out our husbands before, not after. She waited for her husband, after the fact, after the incident. And so we see here, I'm sure when Potiphar walked in the house, she ran to him, wrapped her arms around him, and said, oh, I missed you. Genesis 3:16 says, your desire will be towards your husband. Your desire should be towards your wife, your spouse. Treat each other nicely, treat each other kindly. You are cantankerous, you love to argue, you love to nitpick. Some of those things are not worth it. Solomon said it's better to live in a housetop than to live in the house with a quarrelsome, nitpicking, fault-finding woman or man, because some men are worse than women when it comes to nitpicking and fault-finding. Worse. Next, when you stumble, confess. Please, don't even mention this to Mrs. Potiphar. Confession, don't even mention this to some people. You see, because it's easier, much easier to blame somebody else than to confess, admit your fault. Psalm 120, verse 2 says, "Save me, O Lord, from lying lips and from deceitful tongues." Oh, David was dealing with that night and day all around him. Lying lips and deceitful tongues. All around him. All around him. Now, here are some good girl thoughts. I want to recommend this book to you. It's called Bad Girls of the Bible by Liz Curtis Higgs. I mean, I picked this book up, and there are two of them by her. I couldn't put them down. Caused me to go searching all over the internet about, other bad girls of the Bible and bad boys of the Bible. So, here's some good girl thoughts worth considering. How do you feel when people refer to you as the wife of? Does it bother you? Does it rub you the wrong way? The mother off, the daughter off, the secretary off. Does it create jealousy, envy, disdain? What are some ways you can take pride in your roles as a mother, daughter, housewife, human being? I hope you're able to stand firm and hold your head up high, that your confidence, your self esteem is high, no matter what you have been through, no matter what others have said to you. The story here of this scorned adulteress is a common one that we see in movies, that we read about in some of these salacious newspapers. Don't find yourself in that boat, in that situation. My question to you is this: was Potiphar at all to blame for his wife's wandering eye? As I would say some of it, because he was a busy man. And men who are busy, men who are mighty, doing some great things, sometimes we neglect our wives, we neglect our families, we neglect our children. Preachers are known for doing that. We'll run to a member's house before we take care of our house. We will go into our pocket to give to a member, then give to our own spouse. Preachers are notorious for disregarding and devaluing their spouses. Please, Mrs. Potiphar was a married woman. You can tell she was neglected. You can tell she was loose. She had very, very loose, very, very poor morals. But was it her husband's fault? Or was it the culture of the times? Because I believe she was a slave brought into Egypt. Maybe the culture that she came out of revolved around using sex and sexuality, because in those days, remember, they also had temples that were dedicated to different gods for various things, including sex and prostitution. So maybe she came out of that background, and even though she was married to one of the most powerful men in Egypt at that time, that did not change her. You may take a pig and clean it up, but give the pig a chance, it will go back to its mud hole. So this woman, she had a lot to deal with, and being married to a very busy, very powerful man, I don't think helped her self-esteem and her self-confidence. The other thing I will say to you also, every woman, you need your own ministry, your own work. As long as your children are grown, um, your children can fend for themselves. As long as you make sure your children are secure when you're not home, you need to be doing some things to build your own self-confidence. And I know that today the man and the woman, the husband and the wife, has to work to make ends meet, and sometimes you cannot help it. But some of you don't need to work. Even if you don't need to work, raise your children. Once your children are grown, you can go back to school. Nowadays, we're living in an age where you can advance your education online. Go to school online until your children are grown. While they're in school, do your studies. When they come home, you know, be the mother, be the wife, you know, and that way, you know, you can be a mighty woman who builds up her house and does not tear it down. Be careful of the friends you associate with, please. Some of your girlfriends, some of you have all male friends. You know, when men have women as friends, be mindful because our intentions are not always pure. You know, you give some men a chance, they will take you to bed in a minute, even though you're their best friend, even though you have a platonic relationship. You know, it's critical for you to put some boundaries in place. Don't have men over your house when your husband or your boyfriend is not there. You know, it can create unseemly situations. If you're a man, don't have another woman over at your house when your girlfriend and your wife is not there. It can create jealousies and insecurities in the one you supposedly love. You go now, take your spouse with you. You know, set aside one day a week, you know, to go socializing. Take each other out. I don't know where you go, but go do something social. Many times housewives get bored because they're stuck in the house 7 days a week, changing diapers, taking care of babies, cooking dinner, washing, just being housewife things. And you know, she's not taken out, she's not treating special. And men, you need to do a better job of treating, making your wife feel, or girlfriends feel very special. Let them know, hey, hon, tonight is us. Let's go someplace. Get the babysitter. Let's go away for the weekend. You know, give some quality individual time to one another. How can you fill the idle times? You know, with appropriate thoughts. Hey, uh, get a good hobby. Learn to read. Some of us blacks and Latinos, we don't like to read. We just don't like. We're not reading people. There's so many nice books and novels out here. Learn to read, and not just the Bible, but get some good books, some good novels, and read. Educate yourself. Read up on the news. Inform yourself. You know, and stay off that darn internet because the internet is the source of much evil, much conspiracies. You know, could you, like Joseph, stand firm in the face of such pressure, constant pressure from a very attractive person? Listen, it is critical for you. It is worthwhile for you to understand that you can become strong. You can become strong. You can become confident in who you are. You don't have to be running the world, but you can feel good about yourself. I want to say God bless you. Oh, this series, by the way, this wraps up our story on Mrs. Potiphar, and tomorrow, God willing, we'll begin look at Delilah, another woman who used her sex and sexuality. We'll look at Delilah starting tomorrow, and I trust that you have a wonderful day, a blessed day. Trust that you stay out of trouble and stay safe. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. I may not know you, but if you're a listener, I'm praying for you. So God bless you, and you have a wonderful day, and you know, be good. All right. Bye bye.